There's a bunch of videos of this hawk. One of the best ones is from Appalachian Tenkara, Tenkara Jam at App State University a few years ago. You can find that on the Tenkara Angler website and magazine. So the first thing you need to understand is, just like with casting, the rod has to do all the work. We don't have a rod and reel to give out line. The rod has to do all the work. And you want to make sure you utilize every single chunk of graphite in here to do that work for you. Otherwise, you know, you're wasting an opportunity. Each one of these rods has a power curve. It's a curve in which it's maximally bouncy. That rod's maximally bouncy, okay? This is utilizing all the graphite in the rod. This is going to effectively take the fight out of a fish, absorb runs, etc., etc. There are two ways you can mess this up, this power curve. First thing you can do is close the curve. That most often happens when somebody comes in, messes up, grabs the line super high when they're about to hand line, and pulls that tip down. And you can see what would happen if they kept on yanking, right?
That makes my heart beat, right?
Yeah.
It breaks,
watching that.
It breaks at the junction of section 1 and 2, right where the joint is.
So that's a closed curve. More commonly is an open curve. An open curve more commonly happens when a fish runs and this thing flattens out. And once it's flat, it is no longer bouncy. Like, I'm trying to pull up on it right now, and there's no bounce there. Okay. I am not utilizing any of this graphite effectively. So I got to stay in that power curve if I want to effectively catch fish.
And what happens when you are really flat like that? What happens to the line? The line snaps easy that way, right?
Yeah.
Very easy to snap.
So, yeah, I'll get there.
Strong fish, it's making a run. The rod's going down. Now what?
Come on back.
No, if it's
Well,
deep,
yeah.
John, run.
You move your feet.
No.
No,
The first step.
But
If you can't move your feet.
Hold on. So I'm in a power curve. As soon as I feel that fish start to run, I'm gonna tuck the butt underneath.
Oh, okay.
That gets me back in the power curve.
Okay.
If you need to take a couple steps forward because you missed the opportunity to immediately react, so be it. If you want to drop down to your knees and push forward, so be it. But the idea is, this is opening the... Yeah,
I'll make a run.
Okay, go ahead.
Ready? Whoa.
So that keeps you in that power curve. So I think you can appreciate it. Hold still for a second. I think you can appreciate, as he runs, the curve opens.
Yeah.
I push my rod back forward, I get that curve back. So this is the reaction to a running fish.
Okay.
Now normally it's not straight up and down. You never want to be up here. This is unstable. This is your power position. Within that power position, I usually try to have 3 points of contact on the rod. So if I'm on this side of me, 1, 2, and maybe I got a hand up here. If I'm on this side over here like that, if I'm on this side, 1, 2, 3 here. Now I'm not grabbing the rod.
Yeah, don't grab it.
And I'm not reaching up here. Because reaching up here just negates a whole bunch of graphite.
Yeah. It breaks right there.
I try to keep this control finger on this handle section, okay?
The first section.
So stable with the elbow down and in, 3 points of contact on the rod, and normally I'm sideways. There's different theories on why the sideways part. Mine is you actually want to keep the fish a little bit deeper and avoid jumps in the beginning. Jumps are an opportunity for the slack to develop in the line and the fish to throw the hook. Part of the idea of keeping this bouncy is not only to effectively take the fight out of the fish, but also to keep tension on there at all times. As soon as you lose tension, that's when hooks can pop.
How much tension do you have to maintain to keep a hook in?
Not much at all.
As long as that rod's got some bend.
Yeah, as long as you're in that power curve and that rod's got the bend in it, it'll do it for you. You just don't want that slack coming in.
What happens if you get a big fish that just sits there and just wants to be your boss?
So the first part of this is riding the power curve. The second part is learning to steer fish.
Sweet.
So steering fish works like this. You've got a long lever arm in your hand. And with that long lever arm, you can change the direction of pull on the fish. The fish is generally going to want to go away from danger. It senses danger from the direction of pull. So you can use that, tidbit of behavioral information to your advantage. So say for example, John's a fish and I've got this undercut bank over here, and I don't want John to go there. If John starts running there, hold on, pause. What would you guys do? Your fish is running there. Tell me what to do.
His nose towards me.
How? Well, put the rod down this way.
Another way.
I would argue.
other way.
I would argue don't do
Depending on the
this.
current.
I would argue don't do this. The reason why is because John now feels the direction of danger coming from behind him, which is going to send him right into that comfy zone he just was aiming for. Instead, and although it's initially counterintuitive, as soon as John starts to run for that area, I'm going to make the danger come from the area he wants to go to, the area that I want to keep him out of. And by doing that, 80% of the time he'll turn and go the other way. 20% of the time it doesn't work, shoot, go back to this. But 80% of the time you'll be able to swim it. Now if you're lucky, and this actually happens more often than not, when you change that direction, the fish is just going to swim right to your feet. That makes it easy. If he swims away, what do? Interrupt that. Tuck that butt forward, get your power curve back. If he swims the other direction, well, that's okay. You keep fighting. Now there's one kind of advanced piece to this that I'll add in here, and it's a party trick. It's based off the Carmen Gate. Has anybody heard of the Carmen Gate? No? The Carmen Gate is the most efficient way a trout can hold in any water. They use zero energy or next to zero energy when they're in their Carmen Gate. The Carmen Gate happens when a fish holds in turbulent water and kind of like a helicopter hovering, finds that perfect spot in that turbulent water for their size and their girth and their shape, and is able to just go totally limp and just let the turbulence hold them there. It is the most efficient form of holding for a trout. This was first seen in rainbow trout and then confirmed in brown trout and other species since then. So just about all the trout in rivers do this. That tells you two things. Number one, sometimes really big trout are held in really turbulent, crazy waters that you wouldn't otherwise probably fish. So sometimes it's worth putting a fly in crazy places. But the other thing is that you can actually use that Carmen Gate to your advantage. You see, the way we think those fish stay in that Carmen Gate and find those perfect balance spots in the water is dependent a lot on the lateral lines, those baroreceptors, those pressure receptors they have. Well, most of us know about the lateral line on the side of the fish, but they actually have an entire mask of those baroreceptors. I mean, they have baroreceptors all over their body, and they use that theoretically to find prey, to stay in formation with other fish. They can feel the pressure difference of the water as it changes speed between them and a rock that they're next to. So those baroreceptors are very important to them. You can kind of hit reset on their baroreceptor system, like Control-Alt-Delete for those of us that have older computers. Yeah, or work from the feds. Yeah. So you can hit reset on that baroreceptor pattern by confusing their baroreceptors, by overloading them. So if you have a fish and they're one of those big huge fish that hold in the middle of the current, don't want to go anywhere, or if you're have a smaller fish and you just need to get this over with and they're holding, if you make them change directions in rapid succession 2 or 3 times, a lot of times they will all of a sudden just go limp into that Carmen Gate, and you can literally pull them through the water like a torpedo. Like they're just totally limp. So a couple classes ago, I was with John Pearson, who happens to be a fluvial hydrologist from Berkeley, a guy that studies water in these rivers and how it moves. And I explained that to him. We found a perfect hole to do it in. And between the two of us, we did exactly that in succession with 6 different fish out of the same hole. So it was hook up, let them come across, confuse them, and then literally drag them through the current to our feet, totally limp. So it's a real interesting thing. But the important pieces to take home are, you want that power curve, learn to feel it, learn to stay in it by tucking that butt down. Stay in a position of power, keep control with 3 points of contact on the rod off to the side, and then steer the fish if you want to get crazy with it. Okay? I think everybody should grab this and feel that power curve.
gate area? Is there more than one?
No, and there's almost always
You
just
don't feel
one.
much pressure in your
And
hand
the reason
though.
why is because that magic
can tie
spot
onto that,
is
you don't
very
even feel the
specific to
thing.
each fish, their body type, their habitus, their size, their shape, etc. And a lot of times I've been able to use it. So back home, I've got on the stream that I usually guide on, there's a series of plunge pools, and each one of those plunges has created a back eddy that's dug out underneath the plunge, and that's a common thing. Well, sometimes the biggest fish that are waiting to run upstream to mate eventually, they will find their Carmen gate in those undercuts, and it actually causes them to sit sideways or even face downstream in order to take advantage of the tumble. And so they'll sit there. So what I've learned to do is side cast a fly into that weightless kabari, into that plunging water, and it'll take it down and get caught up and end up tickling them on the nose, because they're facing downstream, and you'll pick up a couple really nice size fish that way. So every once in a while it's worth, with experience you start to spot that water. Every once in a while it's worth putting a fly in maybe some crazy foamy bubbly stuff that you didn't think about before. I did that once with Frank yesterday on a kabari. I caught a fish that was in front of a rock, and it was all foamy bubbles on the surface and moving pretty fast. And when I pointed to where tell me if I'm wrong, but when I pointed to where the fish was, that particular fish, you seemed a little bit like, really? So I think there might have been a little bit of surprise there, but yeah.
So Rob, just recently when I set the hook, and I was fishing upstream, set, and then he ran downstream, even though the resistance was downstream.
Yeah.
Is there a way to make him go upstream? So
I would go sideways first.
Okay.
If he's running towards you downstream, and you're worried about it getting him downstream of you, because downstream of you, in general, is a bad thing. Not only do you have the weight of the fish, but you also now have the weight of the current added to the fish.
Yeah.
So if you want to avoid that situation, the first thing I would do is go one side or the other, and just see